Okay, well, we're going to talk about LiDAR today. And in particular, we're going to talk about expectations. And what we have on the screen here is a LiDAR survey of a ranch with citrus, and it has a creek running through it. So if we shut off some layers here, we can see that we now have the creek, right? But you'll notice that when you zoom into these trees here, what's missing? Well, we're missing points underneath a lot of these trees, right? If we put down the vegetation again. So the LiDAR got the tree, but it didn't get anything underneath the tree. Interesting, huh? It got some. It did get some underneath that tree. So if you were to do this, and you could see that some of that was underneath it, but a lot of it wasn't. Why is that? Well, LiDAR doesn't actually penetrate through vegetation. I say that it wiggles through vegetation, but basically if you were to take a flashlight and hold it, hover it above that tree, and turn the flashlight on at night, the LiDAR is only going to reach where you would see the light through the tree. So if you can't see the light through the tree, if you were laying underneath the tree looking up at the flashlight, then it's not going to get any shots. See, that's the tree, and underneath the tree, it's gone. In fact, you look at some of these, and there's a lot of it that way, right? A lot of stuff missing. Well, let's look at a traditional survey here, where, and this is my chicken scratch. This is me, not my kid, drawing a map, right? Looks pretty awful. But I wanted to make this video, and I didn't want to spend 3 or 4 hours making a fancy exhibit, so this is what we got. So in a conventional survey, what we would do is we would grid this out every 25 feet. This property has a road and a house, and it's got a creek. And then the creek, so we'd shoot it every 25 feet, and the little dots represent every 25 feet. And then we'd go down and shoot the top of bank on this side and the top of bank on that side, and shoot the flow line, right? But with modern technology, what we're trying to do is save time and money and expense, but also give the client more, right? So we're not just giving the client this survey, but we're giving him an ortho photo. It's in state plane coordinates. He's getting a lot more for his money or her money. So what we're doing is we're trying to give them more and also be cost effective. Now, all this green, awful looking stuff is supposed to be trees and vegetation. And this conventional survey over here is supposed to be the same site. I didn't want to take the time to try to duplicate the vegetation. So the point here is, if this creek has a bunch of vegetation and we use LiDAR, well, we're going to be able to see a lot of the creek's features. But notice how, like in this area here, notice how you can't see the top of bank. That's because the vegetation is so dense that the LiDAR can't penetrate through there, can't reach the ground. In here, we can kind of see the top of bank a little bit more because there's enough gaps in the vegetation where we can do it. Then here's an example here where the vegetation's so thick under the trees we can't see the edge of the road. But here, there's enough gaps in the vegetation in the tree canopy we can. Now, in a traditional survey over here, with RTK or a robot, we might shoot it every 25 feet to create 1 foot contours. Well, with this LiDAR survey, we might get 100 points per meter or more. And so we're getting more than enough information to create contours. So even though this side of the creek here is somewhat obscured, we're getting, in 1 meter, we're getting 10 shots, let's say. I'm just making that number up. Could be 10, could be 50, could be 5, but we're still getting enough, right? That's all we need is to create contours. Because traditionally, we would only shoot it every 25 feet, one shot in every 25 feet. A meter is 3.28083333 feet, so we don't need to get 50 shots in a meter in order to contour a site, right? We need to get more than that point density, however, to understand what's going on at the site. So back to this LiDAR survey, is the LiDAR is capturing a lot of data, a lot. So this is what's going on at the site. But in order to create a ground model to contour it, we have more than enough points here, more than enough. And we can see what's going on here, right? But see how we have these black holes in here? Well, but we still have thousands of points, and it's more than enough to show what's going on. More than enough to what we would do to create a contour map. So it's just important to understand the limitations of LiDAR. And in some instances, even though you're doing a LiDAR survey, a field crew is still going to have to go out and shoot some parts of this if it's critical. It depends on what the engineer is doing with the information. And so every job requires some thought put into it. So a typical job that I'm looking at the job, seeing if I want to do LiDAR, and then seeing how to supplement the LiDAR so that I'm giving the most accurate survey map possible. So that's just a little brief overview. I think a lot of times what happens is we get these stories on the History Channel or whatever where they talk about discovering a castle in the Amazon and the LiDAR penetrated the vegetation. It's like, but if you look closely at their image, you know, it looks rough. And what it is you can roughly see that there's some rectangular shape out there. But it takes actually visiting the site, confirming that it's a Aztec or Mayan structure, and then surveying that on the ground would be way more accurate than what the LiDAR would produce because of the heavy canopy involved there. So, but it is useful to see roughly man-made structures in the jungle, right? It's going to capture that because wherever the light can go, the LiDAR can go. So that's a thing to remember. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate being able to do this. And hit thumbs up if you will, and subscribe. And I'm located here in Santa Barbara County, licensed in multiple states, and we've got a LiDAR drone and a regular drone, and also do interior scans, high definition laser scanning, create Revit 3D floor plans from that. Gramatici Land Surveying, that's GROMATICI, and I have a website called gramatici.com. In Latin, it's pronounced Gromatici. The C is a K sound, but I just say Gramatici because it seems to be easier that way. Okay, thanks a lot.